Hello! Welcome to my craft room. I wanted to show you something fun using the My Digital Studio. As I, oftentimes I'll say, oh, I printed this up or I did this. I wanted to actually give you guys an inside look into the computer and to how to do things. Well, I finally have the program where I can record things off my computer and then show you what I'm doing. So bear with me as I'm learning how to do all this stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really trying to stretch myself and challenge myself so that I can offer you something that'll be really helpful, something that I would have liked to have when trying to learn things. That's what I'm trying to offer you. So I'm very excited. It is the Stampin' Up! Company's My Digital Studio, and they have a bunch of their beautiful papers, their designer series papers, their stamps. A lot of them you can get them digitally, and then you can use all the colors that they've had. So if you had an old retired color that you miss so very much, you can always print up a sheet of those stamps, cut them out, and design on your cards the same old colors that you miss and love. And I think that's really fun. It's fun that there's so many different things you can do in the digital world. I love the fact that you can just print up a whole bunch of your own sheets of paper, depending on your printer, of course. But if you have a large format one, you could do 12 by 12 pieces of paper, or 8.5 by 11 if you just have a regular one. And then you don't have to run out and be like, oh no, I had a project, I needed to make 20 of these things for the ladies and I ran out of the paper, what am I going to do? You just run to your computer, print it up, and here you are, you're great. I love that. So this is the card that I designed, and I did just use the My Digital Studio and some of the papers and stamps that I have, and I'll have all the information on my blog. If you hit continue reading, you'll be able to see which ones I used, as well as obviously when I'm going on the computer, I'll be walking you through. Now, there is one thing I did want to mention. I know that this can be a little intimidating, doing something new. I know sometimes just the idea of a computer can be overwhelming. It's just, I was completely anti-computer before I met Carlos, and he sort of, at first I got completely overwhelmed because he would show me all these things that you could do, open up, like Photoshop, for instance, and show me everything, every tool in there, and I'm just like, my brain was going to explode. I could not handle it. So we decided to step back a little bit and just say, okay, what do you want to learn? This is what I need to learn how to do. At first, it was just finding a file of paper, putting it into like opening it up into Photoshop and printing it so that I could have my paper. Then I started stretching a little bit, like, how do I, play around with clip art? How do I move it around, shape it, recolor? Things like that. Just sort of slowly add a little bit at a time. So when I go into My Digital Studio, I'm going to try really hard not to just show you everything, but show you what you need to do to make this project. And, as we do more of these videos, we'll have, hopefully you'll learn more things. Something I'm very excited about showing you is how to take a punch or a shape and turn it into a die cut on your Silhouette, Eclipse, if you have the, Sure Cuts a Lot software, etc., whatever you have. So here's the card. This is what we'll be making. And why don't we begin? We'll go into My Digital Studio. So, when you first open up your My Digital Studio, it's going to come up with this new project options. You can choose the different layouts that they have, the different templates, and as you buy them, and you click on these things, it'll show up. But we're going to go ahead and just do a custom, because we're just making up our own little thing here. And I'm just going to go ahead and go for the 8.5 by 11 and go ahead and create the project. I don't ever worry about names, but if you want to make it simple, we could put a note of thanks and save that. So now what we're going to start with is I'm going to find up here to my top left, this is where we've got, background papers, photo layouts, and the different options, stamps, and embellishments. And here we have our punches, I think. Let's just make sure. Nope, that's stamps. There we go, just at punches for some reason. So here I'm going to go ahead and select this, move it over, And I want this is going to actually be the base of my card. So I want to make sure it's the right size. So I'm going to go and stick it up here in the corner. If we just drag it, left click and drag, and we're going to get a basic idea. And I approximately want it to be about 4 1/4. I think I'm going to go for a little bit bigger than that. And go ahead and move this on over, move it in a little bit. Now to get this to actually have a pattern paper. Now I could have just printed an entire page of the pattern, but because I only want this little segment, I don't want to waste all the rest of the paper. So we just go over here, and as you can see, this says fill. I mean, there's 3 different fills, right? You've got, you know, this color swatch thing, you've got papers and people and stuff, photos. Well, I want the paper fill. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It happens because the last project I did was create this idea. But if you see, you can scroll, you can see all the different papers that you've bought, and you'll have your designer series paper. So I went to the Autumn Vine designer series paper and did the Autumn Vine 4. Just hit OK. And there we go. There's my little square pattern paper. And I thought that was pretty. Now I just want to get some stamps that I'm going to go ahead and be slapping on in here. So the first one, now if you don't have the right one selected, you would just go in here and start scrolling until you find the right one. And I want Framed with Love. And then hit open. And I actually want to choose the color now. Now I wanted to go with a more, you know, like an olive-y kind of color. So I went ahead and did Always Artichoke. I like that deep color. And these are great because you have all the Stampin' Up! Palettes, you know, all the beautiful colors that you can then coincide with all their inks and papers. But then you also have other options. You could even play around with this, you know, switching it about, and then, you know, you can actually put the numbers here if you have one of those books that I showed with the color swatches. You would just put the code in here and you're going to get the exact color that you saw in the book. But going back to the palette, just make sure it's the Always Artichoke and hit OK. And I'm going to put my frame in here. Now to see where I want it to be exactly, I'm going to go ahead and curve it. And if you hold down the shift, does it work here? No, it doesn't. That's just in a, well, it says rotate here, and I've got the 90 degrees, so that's good. In Photoshop, I can hold shift and it keeps it in place. I've gotta get used to using this, right? So just going to go ahead and lay this over just to see, you know, is this exactly where I want it? Do I want it to be, you know, this big, maybe a little bit bigger? But I think I like this. I think that's going to be good. So I'm just going to slap that down here. And now the next thing I'm going to be choosing is going to need to be brown. I'm going to go ahead and do Early Espresso. And going back, I'm going to be browsing more of my stamps. And I'm going to be looking for Madison Avenue. So, here we go. And I'm going to open this. And I'm just going to bring this really pretty medallion in here. And I want this to lay, I need a little bit smaller. I want it to lay in the middle of here and look kind of really pretty. And I am going to go ahead, when I cut this out, I'm going to use a punch. So I want to make sure that it's the right size so it'll punch well. So just going to bring this in just maybe a little bit more. Moving this about just with my arrow keys, just kind of trying to see. And that looks really nice. I think I'll keep it here. So now that I have that, I'm going to move that a little bit off to the side because I'm going to be going ahead and punching that out later. And now I'm going to go ahead, actually, maybe I'll bring this up because this gets cut out. This gets, no, I need more space. Sorry. I had this going a different direction before, so I had more space. Now, for my little typing that I want to throw over this whole thing, I'm going to, first I'll just go ahead and change the color. I want it to be a good mustard yellow. Let's see, is that a good one? Let's hit OK and just see how it looks next to this. Woo! And that's a bit too goldy, isn't it? So let's see. let's choose a different color because I want it to match that background. Okay, how about this one? Yes, perfect. So if you don't know what color, you can always do that, and then you'll be able to find the color you want. Now I'm going to be going for Thank You Kindly. So just going down, Thank You Kindly. You can always just double click to open it. No, you can't. Never mind. You have to hit open. Whoops, sorry. Well, look, I just showed you what you can't do. Now, isn't this cute? I love the way this looks. Please forgive me. I'm still learning all this stuff, but I wanted to show you just some fun things that I do and have a lot of fun with. So, just moving it over here, I'm going to get an idea. I want it to come, I want the S to be around here and the A to be around here. So I'm just going to go in a little bit, just holding the mouse and hitting the diagonal spot, and then also moving it around just to make sure. You need to come in quite a bit actually. And I think a little bit smaller even. And that's looking pretty good. Let's just a little bit more. And we'll just move it and see how that, yeah, I think that would be cute. So now, so it fits really well, I'm going to go ahead and turn it 90 degrees again and move it up here, and that way it's going to fit really nicely and I'll be able to cut it out later. So now, to print, you can always go up to File and Print. I like to do the Control P to make it really fast, but for your seeing, I'll go ahead and do this. And yes, always saving the project before you print is always a good idea. Now, as you can see, this is showing my little medallion is going to get cut off. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel, and I'm going to just go ahead and move it in a little bit. We don't want that to not, we don't want that to be cut out. So I wonder though, because I definitely need some space to be able to do my punch. So I'll move it here, see if this works. Just hitting Control P. Yes, we'll save it really quick. Now it's going to be in this dotted line, which means it's going to be printed just fine. And now I can just go ahead and hit print. Now that you've been into the My Digital Studio and you've got your piece of paper all printed out with everything, it should look something like this, where you've got your square and all these shapes. Now we're just going to go ahead and cut out, if you go ahead and cut out the square, we're going to cut out along the edges here, the green, and then wait on the medallion and the thanks, and then we'll go ahead and get started with that. Now for the assembly. So if you take a 10 1/4 by, the long way of course, 10 1/4 by 5 1/8, I believe, and then we just score it at 5 1/8, we'll get our square card. And I did do that in Early Espresso to go with all the other colors. And we're just going to take our little square of patterned paper and go ahead and get some tape. And then I like to glue down the edges so that it doesn't pop up. I've noticed using two-way glue, things like that, oftentimes it'll end up over time popping up on the edges. So I just take a little bit of the Eileen's glue and kind of get little bits of it all the way around using my fancy dancy spaghetti stick to go ahead and put it on. You know, if I glop too much on, it oozes on the edges, or when it dries it can be warped, you know, kind of like giving it a rippled effect at times. So I want to be careful with that. So just doing this now, I'm going to go ahead and put it about center, and just be careful when putting it down so I can get an idea. That looks about right. That's pretty good. Just pat that down. Pat. And then we'll go ahead and if you want to puffy tape, you can either just put this straight down or you can puffy tape it. I went ahead and puffy taped it. And we're just going to, again, try to line that up to the best of our ability and I think that looks nice. I like how smooth everything feels. Feels so nice. So now with our medallion, we're just going to go ahead and use a 2 3/8 circle punch. And if you don't have it, you can always just kind of trace it out with your scissors. But this just makes it kind of a little bit easier and has a fancy edge. So going ahead, and we just lined these around the scallop, and it's okay that it indents there because our ribbon of thanks is gonna go right across that, and so we won't even see it. So now you can go ahead and use a cutting machine, or use a pencil to get this lined up perfectly. But I'm just gonna go ahead and eyeball it the best that I can. Just kind of doing the best I can to make a little line here. And get on the other side and see about where it is. And it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to do our best. And just make it a little bit faster for you. Now, I do like to just kind of make the edges look like a little bit like it's a ribbon. I think it looks kind of pretty that way. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give it that, like, kind of eyeball it and give it that little bit of a ribbon look to it. And I really like the way that can look. Get it about even. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now to hold this little guy in place before I puffy tape it, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of a little snail adhesive on the back of a note of thanks. So I want to do that. And the reason we're not just puffing the medallion and then puffing this is because then it's going to be lopsided when we put it over. It'd be way puffed, but we'd have to do a little puff trick. But you can do that if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and just do it this way. So I'm going to attach this about even. I think that looks pretty good. So this can keep it in place, and that's really good. We get that right where we want it to be. And now we're going to go ahead and do some puffy tape. And I do just go ahead and grab the big the big mounting puff tape because I use so much of it, it just seems way worth it. So just going to go ahead and cut little strips of this and put it along the edges here. Just making sure I have that bit of support there that I'm needing. Whoops, go ahead and put that on the wrong thing. Alright, so we'll do that. Obviously, things do not always work out perfectly the first time. We just maneuver, right? Just kind of go with the flow here. And getting these, so we've got a decent amount of support here and not too much spaces that can get hit and smacked down in funny ways to then give it kind of a wrinkly effect or look or whatever, or whatnot, what have you. So now we're just going to come in and take this off. And, you know, whatever company you're using dimensionals and you can't get them off, if you stick your nail in there, you can usually get it to pop off the edges. That doesn't necessarily work with this mounting tape, but just kind of getting on the edges, you can usually get it pretty good. So we're just going to come in here and lay this down about where we think it'll look nice. And I think that's straight. Without getting my head in there, I can't quite tell, but I think that looks good. So now that we have that, let me see. Stabby. I left my stabby pokey tool over here for some reason. Whoops, sorry about that. So got my stabby pokey tool so we can put our candy dots on here. I just did that to give it a little bit more dimension, a little added. Sometimes with the printed look, I like to add something. You could always stamp the edges around here with some sort of a texture stamp, just to give it a little bit more of that fun inked look. You can daub the edges, you can sand the edges. There's a lot of things you can do to make this seem a little more, you know, add a little bit more to it. But I wanted to make this kind of simple this time. So I'm going to use Early Espresso candy dots and just put them here. I really like the way that pops out. And then Always Artichoke. I'm going to go ahead and stick those right about, I think, let's see, that looks pretty right there. On the other one, if you see, I had actually done this part on the top and just did the dot, this dot here, and put it there. This time I got it a little turned around, so we're going to do it this way. So either way you look at it, it looks really pretty, and you can do you can do whichever you like. So I hope you like this idea of using digital clip art, stamps, you know, what have you, and papers and stuff to make really fun cards. And you know, you can always use this with scrapbooking and just you know, gifts and fun things. It's a lot of fun, you know, just seeing what you can do with this stuff. So thank you for joining me. I'm so proud of you for, you know, being open to seeing what this is all about if you have never dabbled in it. And if you have, I hope that I'll be able to give you some fun ideas to use some of the stuff you already have and to just have fun. If you need to know more information, just hit the continue reading on my post. So if you go to deannascraftroom.com, you should be able to find this. Actually, on the YouTube video site, if you click, if you look into the description, there's always a link that goes to the post so that you can see all the information, what I used, and if there's anything you need. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you like this idea. Hope you're getting excited for some more digital kind of videos that I'll be doing where you can see what I'm doing on the computer. So thank you, have a great day, and please join me again and we'll have some fun crafting. Thank you, goodbye.